Okay, so let me start by asking how long you've known about cognitive functions and typology for.
Since November.
Okay, and have you seen my typing sessions before?
Do you remember who I am?
I mean, you look really familiar to me, but I'm not sure.
We did a typing session two site. You typed me as an INFJ
Okay, so
2 weeks
yeah,
ago.
you're that same guy. Okay, well,
Same guy.
I I don't normally have that happen to me, so I assume you might just look like him or something.
Oh man, you. No offense, you never check your emails.
I'm not that good about checking my emails.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm pretty lazy.
I noticed that. No offense again. It's
Oh,
just
none taken. Oh, I'm definitely lazy.
yeah.
Shocked sometimes about how lazy I am. Out here in the woods, have plenty of exciting things to do, and I'm just so lazy.
Mm, I got you. I mean, have you been having fun? I've been seeing you on the ATVs and everything. So
Well, I mean, we've been pinned down by weather for quite some time.
yeah.
It's nice today, you know.
I mean, I wish it was nice. Here it's, I mean, I don't like hot weather in general, but like it just went from being 30 degrees a couple days ago to now being about 80. And it's just, I mean, my car's AC is not working, so it's just a pain.
Hmm. So you think I was wrong? Is that where you want me to
I'm not
retest
sure.
it? You're
I'm
not sure.
just, I kind of just want clarification, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know.
Do you
My
have?
brain was like racking, and I was like, every time I do one of these typing sessions, it's like, man, I really want like maybe this is going to solidify it, and then like I think for a while, and I have no reason to doubt it, but then it's like my brain's gonna like kill itself if I don't seek more clarification, which I think that's just going to be an unending loop at this point, but we'll see.
Maybe not. I mean, the thing is, I have good reasons to believe you're an INFJ, and if the
Yes.
explanation is satisfactory enough, perhaps you'll be satisfied by it.
Yes. Well, one thing I want to clarify. I think I threw Amy off with um, certain things, and you also towards the end of the previous typing session were possibly you were possibly entertaining ISFJ, and I had a coaching session actually with I forgot her name. I had a coaching session with the other person that got typed, Joyce. There you go. I had a coaching session with her, and um, she like we were talking and she seemed to believe that I couldn't be ISFJ or just a sensor in general, sensing type. And I wanted to see your point of view on that, I guess.
I don't think you're ISFJ either. You don't act, talk, communicate at all like an SI dom. The
Mm,
thing is, I checked. I spent throughout the entire session. I was like underlying everything is this question, which is maybe the most easy thing to separate somebody on, which is what's their knowledge function. The exceptions to that are when it's in the 4 or 5
hmm
ESTPs, ENTPs, ENFPs, ESFPs. They're harder to distinguish uh, SI versus NI, but the rest of the types, it's pretty easy to distinguish them. You're definitely
Okay.
no SI dome. Your answers about about your schedule, how you eat, how you sleep. Your answers about when I ask you for what is what was the moment you enjoyed most on your trip, right? You gave me a very NI answer. You did not give me a moment. You gave me driving, I believe was your answer, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
That's not a moment. That's something NI people do. They mistake a moment for something that's not a moment. A moment, a moment is
I
like
see.
when my dad and I both had the same moment that was our favorite moment from Hawaii. It was he's SI2 was SI tool. I'm SI4. We're both SI conscious. We both picked the same moment, which interestingly, independently of each other, which was sitting at a McDonald's on a certain day at a certain moment. There was actually a moment that we enjoyed that moment. Rachel, on the other
Mm.
hand, she answered the question. She said she liked the fact that the weather was always changing. That is not a moment. Very much like driving is not a moment.
I see. It kind of lumps everything together, doesn't it?
Yeah. So if you were going to try to isolate on your last vacation what your favorite moment was, now understanding the distinction between a moment, which is like that time we were sitting at McDonald's and I had that sip of coffee and I said, this is fantastic. That was my favorite moment. Now, can you tell me your favorite moment from that trip?
Favorite moment? No, I couldn't because it's.
Because you're
I don't
SI
think I could.
super unconscious. SI8 is super unconscious. Like, how
Yeah.
are you feeling physically right now?
I have a headache.
You have a headache. Okay.
I have a headache. But that's, I could see that being, if I have a headache, I'll just notice that because I feel like I have a headache. I always see that happening. Always something goes on right before a typing session.
Did this happen to you before we started talking? You realized you had a headache, or did you just realize it right now?
I was thinking, so what I was thinking was that every single typing session, I'm either tired or something like something's going on, which always I feel like sometimes skews answers. And then I was thinking, yeah, I feel like I have a headache. I feel like I'm exhausted. And even then, I got good sleep. So that was my thought process. However, I don't think it was me being aware of my own body, more or less bringing attention to myself, bringing attention to myself. That doesn't sound right, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, what
Um,
you're saying is it sounds like a very eight slot kind of relationship with SI. The process you're describing. The thing is, SI conscious people just they I could tell
misnomer.
you how I'm feeling in all parts of my body right now, no problem. It's very it's very natural, but it's a different way of recording information. SI people record information such that they remember a lot of times data that's not relevant to anything. Whereas, your particular experiential data, like when that song was playing, we were at the corner of Mia and Mia Street.
Mm,
It's not relevant to anything, but if you're SI conscious, you record that kind of data. If you're NI conscious, you don't generally record that kind of data, especially if you're
okay.
NI dumb.
One thing, my speech patterns tend to align more with any. And I was talking with Joyce, and
So
it
nothing could be falser than that. That is the
okay.
absolute exact wrong conclusion to draw about your speech patterns. Your speech patterns are highly strongly aligned with NISE, not with NE at all.
Why?
Because you give concise answers that don't include extended explanations. You don't account for all the other possible things that the other person might interpret and lay them out ahead of time, like an INTP or an EHP would. If you are an intuitive, then you're either NE1, NE2, NI1, or NI2. You're definitely not NE1 or 2. You don't talk like I do.
That's, well, I don't know if I talk like you, but one thing I noticed in other typing sessions, especially because you seem you I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying you tend to focus on tests, so then it's going to be a lot more shorter answers. However, other typers, they'll let me just start rambling. And one thing I do is I kind of doubt everything I say. So I will say
Well,
one
let's
thing,
do
but then
some basic
I will
NE.
say the
Let's do some basic NE tests, though. See, the thing is, if I let you ramble endlessly, I might mistakenly conclude that you're using extroverted intuition in a dominant or secondary function. But you're not, clearly, because if you were, you'd be able to pass these skills tests. You behave accordingly on these specific skills tests. Those are much more meaningful correlates than simply me allowing you to give me the impression of NE and concluding your NE. That's a terrible way to type people. And it's not your fault for being confused. You've been typed by terrible typists, or at least they've done a terrible job of typing you. I actually know what the fuck I'm doing.
I was going to say something I forgot.
So tell me the story about the bowling alley then. You got a lady, she walks in with a peacock. You have plenty of time to think about it now. What happened at the end of the story? Show me some
Oh,
extroverted intuition.
I was never told that one, but this is something I didn't realize. walk into a bowling alley, Peacock. The lady asks for the manager. The manager walks up, and the manager asks, or not asks, but it says, not this type of shit again. And and then then the manager, is there anything I can help you with? And the lady was, okay, I see your point. I'm not going to continue because I can already see me faltering.
Well, the point is this:
And
if I were going to tell that story, the manager would say, "Oh my God, Birdie, is it you?" And the peacock will suddenly begin speaking English. Yes, it's me. And the manager and Birdie will realize it's their long lost lovers from many years ago, where they met in France when they were on a peacock displaying tour across Europe, showing people of Europe what peacocks look like.
what do you think was going on with my TI?
You've got good TI. I mean, the thing is, TI 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 all look the same. Which is to
Well,
say,
I think
it could manifest anywhere in this range of very good to very poor. TI 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8 can all go into that range. You're at the top of that range, but I don't think you're 1,
well,
2.
why did you? So I mean, why? What did you see? Because I obviously didn't do well on the TI test specifically. What did you
No,
see
you
that
did. You did
included?
quite well. You got them all
I
right.
did. I
Yeah.
got any of. I thought I got all of them wrong.
No, you got them all right. You got every
Did I
single one of them
really?
right.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I remember you saying no, 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 no.
Well, maybe I'm thinking of a different guy.
I think you're thinking of the last guy. I watched that
Oh,
video
okay.
too. I said
Well,
I remember the test.
Rachel
Yeah.
doesn't perform well on the TI test either. Look, the bottom line is this: slots 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8 can all look somewhere between quite bad and quite good. Okay, depending on the person's particular experience and what they've studied and what they've practiced. Okay, but I can tell you for sure your TI is not 1, 2, and it doesn't seem polar to me. You're definitely
Yeah.
FE. So the thing is, that's not very definitive. What's more informative is how you answer value questions when it comes to slot placement with TI and skills tests, because skills tests can only tell you with TI either Dom second, polar, or something else. That's all they can tell you.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, honestly, actually, after you typed me, it took me like same thing when I was typed by everybody else. I got typed by Joyce and I was already thinking I was an ENTP, so that doesn't count. However, I got typed by Amy. She typed me. I think she concluded ESFJ, and and it took me a few days because I had to. That's one thing I noticed, and I tied back to your typing of, well, just me having poor SI in general. I couldn't find any examples of me being, well, I mean, it's hard to, like, just me being an ESFJ in general, like using the cognitive function that way. And over about 2 days, I realized that there was something wrong because I entertained it. However, I realized it just wasn't right. And then, however, I mean, ENTP was a close enough match for me to believe it, especially if you're not doing any tests. I mean, INFJ and ENTP are both very similar. I mean, they will use FETI in different ways, and then they're going to be any. I mean, they both have strong intuition, weak sensing, so they will look very similar on the surface, and they can manifest very similarly.
Well,
Um,
they're both generally correct about universalist stuff like art or whatever, and they both care about it. But it depends on the particulars. The ENTP there's more range among ENTPs than there is among INFJs, because ENTPs are SI type. INFJs are some of the least particularist people because they've got FI6 and SI8. But regardless,
why would FI6? Wouldn't that be the demonstrative FI though?
well, yeah, but it's also countervalued. So what it means is, when the world is not responding well enough to your FE and your boundaries are being crossed anyway, then you demonstrate that, hey, I'm getting upset. But ideally, you'd like to navigate life where you never have to demonstrate that to anybody, where everybody's responsive to your FE and I stuff and being socially aware to the extent that you are. When they're not, then you have to show like, hey, I'm angry, my boundaries have been crossed. You don't. That's not a good way to know yourself, though. That's not an active, conscious, healthy relationship with the function that one would have in breast fact. It's like my relationship with TE. Additionally, INFJs, because they've got 3 communicative functions first, NI, FE, TI, their 6th slot is as countervalued as it can get, just like mine, just like ENTPs. That they have that in common, right? We have the 3 communicative functions up top. This is why it's possible to mistake them for one another. And our 6th slot function is especially countervalued. You hate it when you have to display your actual feelings, just like I hate it when I have to solve real problems.
That's not something that I could actually agree with. One thing I mean, I could just be logicking my word. I'm not sure exactly, but one thing is that I don't care if I'm displaying my emotions or not, and I'm truthful when it comes to my emotions to a fault. Like I'll just say what I'm feeling, just giving no cares, because I think the way I explained it, like when I analyzed that afterwards, I is that my FE is scared of what other people are going to think about me, but then I already know that everybody has already experienced all the emotions I've experienced, so I don't care if I display my emotions because I know everybody else is thinking, or even if they're not, they have experienced the exact same thing I've experienced before.
What about anger?
So, what about it?
Do you feel the same way about anger as you do other emotions? Are you finding
How do I feel?
anger?
I'm mad at myself if I display anger. That's what I can say. I like the feeling of anger. That's something I've noticed since I was a very young age. I want to stay angry because it feels good. Same with other emotions. I like to just drench myself in them. Like it's quite strange, and it's hard for me to maintain an emotion. However, one thing is it's like I don't want to lose that emotional state, which I think is most people agree with. That's why, like for instance, your overly emotional kid will listen in the car to a bunch of sad music to keep them feeling sad. I don't like to use my emotions to value things, though, and I think that's what you're really getting at. I think that would prove your point. But I'm not afraid of feeling emotions, and I honestly like the feeling of emotions just in general.
Okay. Well, so you do seem to have a more nuanced relationship with your FI than I might expect from an INFJ, but
yeah,
it could be you have a more nuanced relationship with communication about FI than I do, and thus are successfully conveying.
I mean, I feel like it would be quite difficult for you to value it would be about as difficult as you to value my FI for me to value your TE.
Well, I mean, I don't not value your FI.
Not value, not like to measure, I guess.
To resonate with. I mean, I don't do
Oh,
a
yeah.
very good job of resonating with other people's feelings. In general, I don't. Well, I mean, it's not true on like TV and stuff. When I see shows that have stuff that are like heart tugging, I definitely cry and feel a lot of emotions and stuff.
Yeah. I think that's a unhealthy stereotype with ENTPs, especially when you go on the subreddits and you start I realize I like to sometimes just go on subreddits and like start asking a bunch of questions just to see how different types will react. But then you also have to value the fact that most of them are not that type in the first place. But
Yeah.
But yeah, if I ask like, are you guys emotional? Like, no, never emotional. Same with INTJ. The INTJ subreddit is full of unhealthy,
Highly emotional people claiming they're never emotional.
Exactly. Yeah. Probably a lot
Yeah,
of
well,
ESFPs.
I'm frequently emotional. The thing about
Yeah.
polar FI, it maybe is different than 6th slot, is it's for me. Feelings are I'm always the object of them. They just happen to me, and then they go away. And I don't even really understand how one would use it as a means of making decisions.
Yeah.
Because when I'm angry, the thing to do is to not make decisions. Wait until you're less angry. You know.
I kind of have like again. I think you can. Everybody can. I don't even know how to explain it, but I'm aware that I am not capable of making rational decisions while I'm emotional. I'm very aware of that. And I'm like, for instance, if there's a girl I like or something, I know just, I mean, also from experience that that initial like lovey-dovey is like first week or two will fade away very quickly. So I try to pull myself away from the situation so then I can eventually look at it rationally because I'm aware in that like that moment that I'm not capable of making a rational decision. So I purposefully pull my way from it, like myself away from it.
Well, I mean, that seems like pretty good FI awareness. Everything you've been saying so far about your I mean, if anything would give me pause about the typing, it would be you demonstrating uh, a very conscious relationship with FI. But the problem is,
It's
I already know, that I'm not good at determining that. So,
yes,
so
that is true, but
I
I
can't
think
tell if what you're saying means you have a conscious relationship with FI or not. So me trying to use that to take away from my confidence in your INFJ is a bad decision.
one thing is that I'm I actually am I have it's like I'm looking at the emotional symptoms of emotion like like I'm fruitfully unaware of that I'm experiencing a certain emotion until somebody points it out. I will eventually notice that I am experiencing emotion, but people are more aware of my emotional state than I am. Like I was upset one day. I didn't even know I was upset, but I was started like everybody's like, "Why are you so upset?" I'm like, "I'm fine." And then like 5 minutes later, I'm like yelling at people, and I'm like, "Oh, that's what they're seeing." So I don't know if that even correlates to it, but I get it. I think I'm just try to be. I just understand that that I'm a human being, and it's not gonna like even if I was. I don't know. I find I don't even know how to explain it. It's it doesn't work when you ignore parts of yourself. So I might as well integrate them so you can get over them quickly.
Yeah, but there are, I mean, the idea that there are parts of yourself, right? You have different attentional manners. And because you prioritize some of them, others you habitually under attend to. Those you can't there are no integrations that aren't trade-offs. So on a cognitive function level, if you're trying to spend more time attending via introverted feeling, let's say, then you're spending less time attending via your strengths. And as a general policy, that's not a good strategy of the human being.
Hmm. Well, one thing is that just in general, my FE is annoying. Like even with you, for instance, I'm scared that like I'm being like a dick for some reason. I don't know why, but like me even rescheduling this, I'm like maybe I'm gonna offend him. Maybe he's gonna hate me. Maybe it's like I know this is not rational thinking, but like I'm so worried about what other people think. It's
That sounds
unhealthy.
like FE Tool. That sounds like FE Tool. I mean,
Yeah,
Rachel sometimes worries that she's offended the cat, and the cat is mad.
I'm not worried about the cat or the dog, but
I
but
mean,
it's
that's
really
how
bad.
FE Tool can be sometimes. It's your
And I know
conscious.
the thing is,
Go ahead.
no, you say what you're gonna say. We're gonna do this FE loop until eventually one of
You're
us says something.
constantly attending to how shit plays, right?
Yeah.
And that's incredibly tiring, which is why, like, for example, Rachel and I, after we get into bed at night, after a little while, she goes and sleeps upstairs in a different room because it's relief for her. She can't be in the same room with somebody without being aware of that FE shit all the time.
Mm.
She's constantly aware of how her rustling around might bother me. And, I'm kind of the same way. So it just works out better that we ultimately sleep in separate rooms, because then she can do her thing and not worry about how it impacts my impression of her.
Interesting. I have this question. I had a few questions I wanted to ask you, but then the typing session somehow took the entire time to take the typing session, so I never got to ask you these questions. What happened with, like, I know you were testing out possibly connecting the rat tests to NI. What were your conclusion on that? Or if there was any conclusion?
It's not reliable.
It's not reliable.
Mm-mm.
Okay. What else?
It-
This is a
yeah.
really strange question. However, I imagine that you've thought about this. How do you think cognitive functions would display if you were, for instance, on psychedelics, like shrooms, for instance?
Well, when I'm on mushrooms, uh, to the extent that it impacts my cognitive functions, it makes me. I tend to feel like I'm at least a little bit more insightful on mushrooms. Maybe have
Yeah,
better, more conscious NI a little bit. But
that's
mushrooms also can affect my SI a lot too. They make me feel sick. Mushrooms are a tough drug to pin down. Really tough drug to pin down. Every time I think I got
yeah,
them pinned down to what they're doing and what they are, they change it up on me.
yeah. I look through it the lens of if I was an INFJ. I just had a trip less than a week ago. That was a nice trip, but also that's another point. I'm gonna get back to that as well. Um, However, I know you said that you don't look for, like, in psychedelics, you don't look for meaning, I guess. And that's one thing I only like. If I'm smoking weed, if I'm doing any type of psychedelics in general, I'm only doing it specifically for the purpose of trying to better understand myself, because I know it's kind of like a tool to go into the unconscious. And I do pull things out. And there tends to be like a theme to each trip. First scene, like, I remember first trip I ever had was like exploring, like, the feeling of wholeness with the universe. And I always do like around 4 grams, so it's typically a little bit more of an intense trip, and I spread it out between 6 months. Um, However, it was like just understanding that everything was connected. The second trip was about understanding my own emotions and my insecurities, and this last trip was kind of understanding feminine and masculine energies in a way. And it was really strange because I never thought I would ever like go down that like that direction of the trip. But I always pull meaning out of it, and it seems like you don't do that.
Well, that's historically been my narrative, is that drugs are for fun, not for education.
And I
but
have the opposite. And
but I will tell you this: it's difficult to interpret mushrooms in any way other than through magical thinking,
yeah,
because they do teach me things. I learn things from taking mushrooms all the time. But I didn't this
uh-huh.
last time. Last time I took mushrooms was just not yesterday, but the day before. Rachel and I we split some tea that I made out of, I don't know, maybe we split like a little more than an eighth, right? So we didn't have very much
Hmm.
mushrooms, but regardless, it was just super SI sleepy. I just like got into bed and just rolled around and got cozy and stuff, right? And didn't really have any kind of insight at all. On
Were you able?
other mushroom trips, I feel like are defined very much by the amount of insight they provide me. But it's not so holistically contained as what you describe. The
Yeah.
insights are much more specific. Like, for example, The reason mushrooms are so unpredictable for me is because I'm so unpredictable, not the other way around. It's not mushrooms being unpredictable, it's me being unpredictable and mushrooms being responsive to my unpredictability and my variability.
Yeah. And I think I pull an NI truth from the entire experience because I can remember there's different segments of my previous trip. That last trip was weird. It was like I was reborn into like a different spirit that it was so strange. And then like I started going throughout life and then like that spirit died. It was so strange. Um, and I've never experienced that before, but it was also just understanding my energy as well. One thing that I'm kind of scared of is anything getting to my head, and it's a huge insecurity I have. Like I don't want to be ever deemed as selfish. And one thing is that for me to ever do anything in life, I have to let go of that and be selfish and be self-absorbed to what my degree is. I obviously need to learn where that line is. I just don't know where it is yet because I've never even danced around it yet.
I mean, so
But
in this conversation, if I were to evaluate this conversation holistically, I would tell you sound just like an INFJ.
yeah, I know. Yeah, and that's one thing I noticed is that you told me last time that INFJs look outward for truth, I guess. So, for instance, Rachel would look at charts, and I sometimes do look at charts, but it's like I look at it with two different egos: one that entertains it, and then another that like it's it's hard to believe.
Try to keep your intellectual distance while also being a knower. It's difficult for
Exactly.
INFJs because they have NI, an instantaneous intuitive knowing function first as a absolute value. Then they have TI, a deliberative external objective evaluatory function. And so you want to both know the holistic truth and have it be deconstructively true. Well, most
Yeah.
holistically true things aren't deconstructively true. So
Yeah.
you're kind of in a double bind there inherently. But the key
Yeah.
point is INFJs look to external sources to tell them about themselves, as you are
Which
doing now.
is, I was about to get there because I made that realization. I made that realization probably right after the trip that I might not use like astrology or I mean I've actually been starting to connect things, for instance. Like I don't know if you can even I feel like Rachel probably knows more what I'm about to talk about, but like you can almost feel like if somebody's of a masculine or more feminine energy, and
Let
it
me call
almost
Rachel in here.
always.
This is interesting. Hold on. Hey, Rachel, you come in here for a minute? Okay, she's putting two sweaters away.
Yeah, but yeah, I feel like this would because I honestly really wanted to talk to you, and I had a feeling that I was an INFJ, and I needed a little bit more certainty, but these are just the type of things I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah,
Um,
well, the more I talk to you, the more certain I am.
yeah, yeah, I'm kind of well, I'm about as certain as I'm an INFJ. After you told me as an INFJ that I was an ENTP, and I was pretty sure about that too. So it's like that's one thing I
You,
talked to Joyce about. I can't trust myself.
you
I can't
can't
take
trust me.
the
Okay, I agree. You can't trust yourself about your own self perceptions because they're very unconscious. But you
yeah.
can trust Eric and his opinions about you. Because unlike other people, know what the fuck I'm doing.
Okay.
Rachel, I want you to talk with him briefly about this thing of masculine and feminine energy.
Oh,
Oh
interesting.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I had a trip.
No, it's something that I've researched myself.
And I'm going to open this window so I
It's
can hear you
it's
outside.
nothing. It's nothing that I've researched. It's so my previous so I do shrooms typically like once every 6 months, and my previous trip was kind of exploring the fact that I have a masculine energy, and I'm almost like ashamed of it, but that's kind of a whole other story. But one thing is that I'm able to sense if somebody's of a masculine or feminine energy, then I'll compare it to their chart, and it seems to line up almost perfectly every single time.
What am I?
And
Oh my gosh, so like your birth chart?
yeah, and
Okay.
it lines up every time, and that's one thing. And also, I came to this realization that people of a feminine and masculine energy need to be together. It's very difficult. Like you're very attracted to your own energy, however, like your own type of energy, I guess. However, like that was my past relationship. However, you want this different things because I don't. This might be narrow-minded viewpoint, but I think each type of energy has like certain roles they have to play. And this is all I gained from this trip. I'm kind of like processing outside of it. However, feminine energy, I hate saying it because it sounds like but it's like a realization I came to. It's like feminine energy likes to serve almost. And I was talking to my friend about it, who is more of a feminine energy, and he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Okay, that's interesting." And like a masculine energy likes to have a vision. They want to achieve something. And that was a problem in my previous relationship, is that I was married to her, and my wife at the time, she she had goals of her own, and I had goals of my own, or I was trying to play that feminine role because I guess I'm almost just like a little bit ashamed of having a masculine energy. However, it just wasn't working, and she knew it wasn't working. I knew it wasn't working, and I kind of just came to that realization later. So I don't know. What's your input on that, Rachel?
I think it's really interesting. I think it's really interesting that you've been able to make correlates between masculine, feminine energy and people's birth charts. Um,
Mm-hmm.
What kind of energy do I have?
You seem fairly masculine. It's almost like a self-absorbed energy. No offense.
None taken. I am
Yeah, and
nothing else absorbed.
yeah, and it's something I'm almost ashamed about because I feel like I can't let other people have this burden, but at the same time, like it's there, and I felt it's almost like powerful in a way because I felt that energy surge through me in my last trip, and I was talking to my friend at the time who was helping. I think he's an ENFJ. I don't know if that really helps with anything, but he was like, it just feels so powerful. It's like a side of me that I've never really tapped into, but I'm just like, even now, it's like I know that type of energy, I'm so scared that it's going to go to my head, and I can't really. I don't know where I was going with that. I completely lost the point of what I was talking about.
well, maybe you could balance. That's the thing. You can balance it with someone who is more of a feminine energy, because
And
someone of a more feminine energy will appreciate all the
and
masculine traits.
do you remember when you asked me what I was looking for in a partner?
I don't remember your answer. I do remember asking you that, but
So my answer was like, I don't know. It was like somebody who can have, like, I want to have like an intellectual conversation with. That's like an
oh,
aspect of it.
okay.
However, I thought about it for a lot longer, and what I really, really like, not just want but need, is a partner. And that's something I didn't really feel like I had in my last relationship. It was always like we're just two people who were in a relationship, and it's like we weren't really helping each other. We were just together and finding a partner. And I think it's going to have to be somebody with a feminine energy, somebody who is willing to support me through my goals. And it sounds so, how do I say it? It sounds so traditional. And I guess I've been conditioned to believe that traditional things are not great. But I think that's just how it works.
There's nothing wrong with you wanting to fuck some chick, okay?
I do that plenty, but but just I honestly, the whole, I like, after I broke up, after I separated the relationship, I noticed immediately that I was like reaching out to like these, trying to like fill that void with people that I'm not attracted to, or not, I don't feel any attraction to, I don't feel any connection to. And I realized that really what I want, I don't think I'm ready for it yet, but really what I want is to be able to support somebody who's who wants to support me, I guess.
Yeah, I think those are good things to look for in a relationship. Having support is really important. And it's easy to be in a relationship where like your lives are parallel. They're not intersecting. They're parallel, right? Because like you're in your lane, and your partner was in another lane, and it seems like it's great to everyone else. Maybe like, oh wow, they have goals and they're attaining them, but
Yeah,
if you don't have that support, really, if you're
I
not
think,
actually, what were you say?
no, you continue what you're saying.
Uh, I think that if you don't have that support, and it's like
You're doing all the lifting.
Yeah, you're doing all the work.
You're gonna be supportive. You're gonna do your part to be a good partner, or at least not be a bad partner.
I think that's the problem with modern society is that like you have like I mean I feel like people are pressured into like what do you want to do? I was like if somebody like really like actually just wants to be that supporting partner, like it's like they're shamed for it because it's not valued in this society. It's like you both have to go achieve what you guys want to achieve, and then it creates this like broken household where like
Yeah.
let's say you want to have kids, then you're both trying to achieve your goals, and it typically never works. Typically, I mean, it's traditionally the woman would come back, take care of the children, but I think realistically in general, one realization I made is that it doesn't matter which gender you are as long as the masculine role is like the person of the masculine energy is taking their role, whatever the like you get what I'm saying,
Yeah.
and then the feminine, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a weird. Like I would have never thought of this like before that, but it just kind of makes sense and it kind of clicks. Like I know I have a family friend, I guess, and she's always been struggling. Like she's a very successful woman. She's very assertive. I think she tests as an ENFJ. I swear to God, she's an ENTJ. There's like it's just she doesn't seem highly FE, but she seems very charismatic. But she's always been searching for somebody who would just be like always like grind against her. And I think she's kind of found somebody who's more of that feminine energy. And I don't know. I'll see how that works out. But
yeah, it doesn't matter the sex of the person. It matters the energy that they're carrying more. Yeah, I agree.
quite
I agree.
strange.
And I think that it's important for, well, I just think it's important for people to find their counterpart in that way.
Yeah.
In my experience, both Rachel and I were in a lot of relationships before we got with each other for a decent number, and none of them. Once you're in the right relationship, all the wrong relationships, it seems very binary.
Yeah.
You're either with the right person or you're not.
Yeah, and if you're looking for someone who's more feminine, you should go for that. If you had that epiphany, that's pretty big. That's like a big
Me and
realism.
Eric were yeah, I think it is. I think it's just because I'm not there yet, but I need to accept certain parts of myself before I can really get that. But me and Eric were both talking about how INFJs kind of look towards the outside world, I guess, or like they look for, like, for instance, looking at charts to find meaning. Do you go into like for instance, for me at least, anytime I smoke weed or anytime I take shrooms, it's always I'm looking for meaning out of it. I don't care about the experience. I'm only looking for meaning. Is that the same thing with you?
My weed trip. I mean, my weed trips. Weed not so much, but mushrooms. I get very FI. I get very much intense, like with my feelings.
Yeah.
So maybe that is the same sort of thing. It's like realizing what is important to me and what I want. But it's what would you say? What were you saying?
Is there like an NI truth to your trips? Like for me, it's always like there's like a story or like a meaning or like something to learn from, like a singular thing to learn from each trip. Is that the same thing for you?
We do mushrooms a lot more than you.
Yeah. We don't space it out as much. I admit I think a lot about Eric, and I say I'm tripping on mushrooms and he's like out somewhere, I will have this like intense worry. And whereas if I'm not on mushrooms, I'm not worrying. Like, and it doesn't mean that I care any less. It's just that for whatever reason, the mushrooms brings out this like this moment of
Anxiety.
A worry, yeah, like because of something that I care about is like I think something can go wrong.
Weird. One
But
common theme I see with INFJs is that they tend to be very anxious people. However, like, would you agree with that?
yeah, I would. I think that
That's one thing that kind of pulled me away from INFJ is like I don't have the demeanor of an INFJ. Well, I think Eric would disagree, but
They're not
um,
perceived as anxious. I agree with you that they're anxious, but they
yeah,
don't appear anxious. You don't appear anxious. Neither does Rachel most of the time. I can read Rachel pretty well at this point, even though her reads are small. You know, INFJs give off small cues designed for
mm,
nuanced people to interpret.
mm,
Most people aren't that nuanced. Then they're forced to give off larger cues. That's what it means, countervalued FI. It's like your
INFJs
boundaries
like
are
to
being
feel
crossed.
special.
I got to give off larger cues now. I don't like that.
yeah,
Weird.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
I don't
we're
know, but
I think
I'm
that
just
INFJs, I'm sorry, I don't need to talk at the same time as you.
I know, and then we both want to speak over, or then we both want the other person to finish what they're saying.
Yeah, no, go first.
I'm just saying, I mean, obviously each person is different, but from my personal experience, I'm not somebody who's a very anxious person. I'm honestly somebody who I like. It's not that I freeze in the moment. I just am not stressed out. I'm never ever stressed. I think it's just weak SE, but I'm never stressed enough to be anxious, I guess. Just things in the moment don't anxious like don't I don't know how to explain it. My ex used to tell me that I just like didn't care enough about the things that are going on, and I didn't. I just think that like I how do I say it? Like I just I guess I don't. I might have a headache right now. I'm not speaking well.
Okay.
It's I don't like if I have a certain perspective on something, it's like I don't care about the smaller things anymore. Like like if something needs to get done, like he's like, why aren't you stressed out about it? We need to get this done. I'm like, it's like really, how much are we gonna care about this in a week from now or 2 weeks from now? It's nothing. And I don't know. So I just have a no care attitude, I guess.
I get that. I
I
definitely get
translated
that.
that poorly, but
I think that sometimes I have that too, and then I get myself like worried that I'm supposed to be caring about it, and it's because I've kind of been conditioned that way to like um to care about things that
it's
I don't really care
it's
about.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
you like people expect you to care. And that's one thing is
Yes.
that I gotta stop caring about people's expectations.
I mean, you're
To
not
do
going
things
to.
I mean, yeah, I guess that's but
You can't change who you are. The thing is, what you
Yeah.
have done is internalized some FI bullshit. FI people will tell you the following thing is a universal truth. You shouldn't care about what other people think. You got to be true to yourself. That's only the case for FI people.
Yeah.
That's not the case for FE people. FE people need to be cool. You know, people who are FE third like me want to be cool and continuously are not.
that's true. I think FI people are the only ones who are really actually cool. Well, they like perceived
I
as cool.
disagree with you. I totally disagree with you. Look, FI people both can be cool. They're cool in different ways, though.
Yeah.
When FI people are authentically healthy people and good people, and not and haven't given over too much of their will to their FI, then they're great and they're who they are. You know, when FE people are
Yeah,
being cool FE team players, they're cool FE team players. They're who they are. You know.
yeah, yeah. I
Do you
mean,
do you
what's up?
care about appearances? Do you care about like aesthetics?
I hate that I do.
Okay.
That's yeah. It's like I mean, ever since a young age, I never fit in, but I always wanted to fit in so bad, and it was bad. I can remember I can remember a realization where I was just like acting like a sheep in like a fold. Like I don't know. I just like took it back like a seat back or took a step back, and I realized like what am I doing? Like, am I really like just trying to do all this just to fit in, and nobody thinks I fit in the first place? And it's just like people just view you as like having a weak character just because you just what so you can fit in. But yeah, I mean, I do care. Like, for instance, I have a big dent in my car. Like, every time I look at it, I don't think, man, that looks bad. Like, on my, like, what will other people think about me? Like, how people perceive me. So I care about aesthetics in the point where, like, on an FE sense, like, I want to look good. I want to dress well so people think better of me. However, like in high school, for instance, I kind of like had a very nihilistic viewpoint of how I view other people. So like I would just dress poorly all the time. But I mean, I think there's a healthy amount of peacocking that you can do. But yeah, I don't
I
know
mean,
how well that
INFJs
answers.
are experts on knowing exactly where that line is. Like, look at Rachel right now; she looks pretty nice,
Thanks.
but
Yeah.
but
Well,
she
that's
doesn't
something actually I just
she
recently
doesn't look
developed.
overdressed either.
Yeah. Well, most people would tell me that I was a poor dresser until probably up until like 6 months ago, but I've changed. I it's getting close to a year since my breakup. I've changed so much, and that's one thing I noticed, that I've changed more in the past year than I've changed in the 4 years I was in that relationship. But I'm
Well,
also at the age, like, I'm 20 years old right now. I'm like at the age where change is rapid.
yeah, that's true. I tend to forget about age a lot when I'm talking to people. It does
I know, I
matter.
can
So,
tell. I mean, you have a very childish demeanor. No offense. Like you, like
Thank you.
not you. It's actually, I think it's more of a sign of maturity. I like the, those type of kids that like try to act like adults, but they don't know what adults are. And but you have a very
I just
childish
think I'm
viewpoint of what adults are.
egalitarian in my approach. I try to treat everybody the same.
Yeah, which is nice. It is a nice change of mind, I guess. Do you ever find that you're having constant conversations with yourself, Rachel? If she's still there?
Yeah, she's here.
I definitely do. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always having a conversation. One thing, when I was watching all of Eric's videos, like the person I'm talking to always will be based off of like whose content I'm consuming the most. And I swear, like I used to have like conversations constantly, like just running, like I think it's just NI running scenarios. Like I'll just have constant conversations.
Because I have to check with Eric, but that does sound like unconscious any.
I mean, I don't know what it's like for an NIDOMs unconscious or what their experience of internal dialogue is in contrast to say mine.
Yeah.
But I would describe mine as comprising, at least lately, a lot of SI stuff, a lot of
Yeah. And
a
I
lot of
remember you brought that up.
a lot of bad memories, a lot of
Wow.
painful memories, and a lot of just general
That's one
shit.
thing that kind of like, I think I'm just because I was just processing the emotions of a breakup, but like I was so nostalgic. Like I remember, like I'd be constantly thinking about all the good memories in the past, and I was aware of the fact that I'm only looking at the good stuff, but like I would go to places that we went to and stuff just out of like pure like heartbreak and nostalgia, like just wanting to feel those emotions again. And it was kind of sad. It was very sad. But I don't know, like that's one thing. Like I feel like people, I was like, I would imagine that most people are nostalgic in a sense, even if they have weak SI. But I don't know, I saw that
INFJs
as a
typically most people experience some nostalgia, meaning anybody with SI conscious or in an absolute value slot, 5 or 7. But 6 and 8 typically don't feel very nostalgic.
and
But
I'm not this.
what you're describing sounds like heartbreak rather than
Yeah,
nostalgia.
that's because I'm also not, I know I'm not a nostalgic person. Like I can, like, so for instance, my mom, I'm 80% sure that she's an ESFJ. Um, her SI, it's like she is always taking pictures of everything. She is always she's always trying to capture moments constantly, and I can appreciate it with a future sense,
Capturing
like looking back
moments
at old
is
pictures.
capturing moments is indeed a very ESFJ thing to do.
Yeah, I'm because I can also relate. She's not TE. Like that's just one thing I can tell. She's not TE. She's definitely FE. Um, However, I can relate back to some of the stories you told me, like, or not told me. Sorry, that's my perspective. Um, I've heard like you talking about your ESTJ father. Like, it's just the lack of awareness of the moment, I guess. Like she'll come, like she'll be like she'll go like my daughter will go to our or her mother's family, and then she'll come back with different shoes on, and it's like they're trying to steal her shoes, or they're like doing this on purpose, and it's like they're like she's like assuming the worst things in the world, and I'm like, mom, I from my own person, they don't care. Nobody is caring that much as you think they're caring. And I don't know if that's NI or if that's a different function, but it
That's
sounded very
NI
similar.
polar right there.
Yeah,
That's
and she
NI
does it a
polar.
lot, and I'm like every 90% of all moms are ESFJs based off of online, but like she's an ESFJ.
Yeah. Well, that anti-polar is weird. Sometimes they draw crazy conclusions from the most disparate bits of evidence that are unconnected to each other and draw this connection that means it's just crazy and out of left
Well,
field.
I don't know if it's true, but do they weigh it, like, because they have any child? Do they weigh are they bad at weighing the probabilities of each NI experience, I guess,
Well,
or
yeah,
NI
they're
thought?
bad at determining relevance. So
Okay.
that means they're bad at knowing whether factor A is really a relevant factor to consider in making a decision or just noise in the data stream. They are very bad at distinguishing those things.
Yeah, that seems about right. I don't know. Yeah, mom, my yeah. Oh, I mean, I think she. I don't think it's paranoia. I think it's just I'm not sure exactly what it is, because I think I can I can be quite paranoid about, so like just drawing connections where I probably shouldn't be drawing connections. But I have a tendency to ignore those just because it's irrational to me, I guess. However, I
Well, I
can
mean,
also think but the thing is that when I should be drawing connections, I will ignore those connections that should be drawn. And like I've like I have like I had this person tell me like they did something like a terrible thing, like something like like that screaming, stay away from this person. How I'm just like thinking the best of this person, which I think is more FE. But I'm like, well, everybody's messed up a little bit, or like they can be saved or whatnot. And now I'm just thinking like, what am I like? Like I can't do that. Like I have people, like that's a risk. I don't know.
yeah.
I just drew that out of my butt because I was thinking about it. That's not related to what we're talking about.
Well, I mean, it's
And
related
that's
to FI stuff. Your FI was late to the party, as six slot typically is. Uh, you know, your TI said, I can't validate or invalidate this. Your FI showed up and said, the things you actually value are more important than trying to be fair to this person.
mm,
Um, so yeah, you seem like an INFJ who's got a lot on his mind.
yeah. I don't know. Just yeah, that's very accurate. But who doesn't have a lot on their mind? I guess. I don't know. I'm my SE is terrible. I can tell already. Like that's one thing I knew. Like especially like if somebody even like I remember you entertain ESTP. Um, I I had my TI was entertaining it logically. However, like I just had a sense, like knowing how much you're in the moment versus how much you're not in the moment is a very relative thing. You only can compare it to other people, but I just know I'm not in the moment, and I just don't. I need to work on applying pressure. Like examples like a jujitsu, for instance. Um, like a common thing that people say is like, why aren't like I'm just like trying to wait for windows to open, but I wait for them to a fault to the point where like I put myself in a poor position. Um, so it's just like I just need to work, like I just need to like understand that I need to apply pressure sometimes. Like sometimes the only thing to do is apply pressure, and I think that's
Yeah,
what's been
well, I
holding me
mean,
back.
and that's much more SE than being in the moment is. You're in the moment just fine when you're waiting for those windows to open. You're observing, waiting for opportunity to present itself. But what you're
Yeah,
saying is you need to be more proactive and create impacts directly. And
yeah,
that's exactly what you'd expect to hear somebody
yeah,
who's prioritizing
and
receiving, if receiving as a manner of attention, NI, over acting as a manner of attention,
yeah,
SE, in a
and our
context which rewards action as a manner of attention.
yeah. I remember entertaining NI Polar, and I remember like they were explaining like the reason why you're not taking action in your life is because of NI Polar. You need to have an SI experience before you can go forward or something. But I mean, now I realize it's because anytime that I like anytime I try to go down a path, I can't force myself to do it because, well, first of all, I don't want to take the first couple steps just because of the weak SD, but also I don't see a vision, and I'm constantly trying to look for like the right path will unfold itself. Like just have to wait, like subconsciously. I'm not thinking this like consciously, and
I mean,
and it just never
you're
shows up.
consciously you're observing, waiting for that path to open up, but
Yeah, but
or to
yeah,
clarify it. But the
but I
thing
think it
is,
just yeah,
I'm bad at SE too. Look, being an intuitive means you're bad at SE. Rachel and I are both
sensing.
bad at SE. It's
Yeah,
hard for me to do things that I know I need to do. I've got my plate cleaned of almost everything in life now. I only have a few little things left that I have to do. And I struggle so much doing those few little things.
yeah. And I'm the opposite. I
We
gotta
need to
do
go to the
everything.
TMP. We need to go to the what's it
I,
called?
I've had a ticket I've had to
We
deal
got so
with
much
is
shit we need to do. We got so much shit we need to do. We needed to do for a long time, but then all this weather stuff happens. You know how hard it is to get around to actually doing shit.
yeah, yeah. Like oh my god, I have too many things to do. Man,
Daniel,
I have a ticket. What's up?
I'm sorry. Do you would you consider yourself an idealist?
What do you mean?
Like, do you have like are you a perfectionist when it comes to like standards and for yourself and for others?
So, uh, I guess my relationship with perfection is. I remember. I don't. This is like every time I think about this, I always remember this one instance back in middle school. This was a while ago, where I was working on this project and I wasn't aware of how much time I was allotted, to be honest. Middle school was a blur for me, but I had this project and I was so perfect with everything, but I never got to finish it. And they're like, "You're just being too much of a perfectionist," and I just never got to finish the project. And I realized from that moment forward that if I am so worried about being a perfectionist, I'm never actually gonna get anything done. So I consciously tell myself that make sure like it sucks. It hurts my heart when I can't make something perfect, but just I have to tell myself that like things can't be perfect. And I have to go through a world like throughout my life like that.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
Some things are pretty close to perfect. They're just not
No.
things I, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, people spend their entire lives trying to perfect things, and it's do you want to just perfect one thing or do you want to work on a bunch of things? I don't know. Like I've been thinking a lot about like what I want to really do with my life. And one thing I thought about that my entire life, a theme that I always had was that like I wanted to like do things. I wanted to lead, I guess, in a way. I wanted to change things. And like I always like fantasize about like building city infrastructure or like redeveloping systems. And I always dismissed it because I thought it was impractical. Like I'm never going to be able to do that. And I realized I think that's like the type of shit, like that's the type of things I need to do. And like I have to build myself up right now to be the person who can do that. And that's just a realization I came to not too long ago. And I'm trying to figure out, and one thing was just I gotta make a real, like, I gotta confess something. I kind of knew I was an INFJ before I did this. I really just wanted to talk about this stuff.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's like people have follow-up questions. There's a lot of reasons why people sometimes schedule a second thing. I just normally people email me saying like, I'm gonna schedule a second thing. Or did you do that and I just didn't answer it or what?
Yep. You don't answer. You're so bad at answering. Like first I emailed you, and then your moderator was like, he'll email you back when the typing session opened. You never emailed me back. And then I was like, hey, like I have some questions about being an INFJ. And I didn't want to, like, some things that like something I used to do a lot was that I would just assume that I have to do a certain thing. And one thing I used to get criticized about, like, why didn't you just ask? Maybe you can get it for cheaper or something. So I was like, okay, I'll ask him, see how he wants to proceed, if like I want to get retyped or whatnot. You never responded. So I was like, so I just did it. So I need to type something
Well,
real
that's
quick.
bad SE for you.
Yeah. And
But when people PayPal me, I always email them.
Yeah, money talks.
Yeah. So otherwise I just assume it's questions I don't want to answer.
Give me 1 second.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop this recording now. Are you comfortable with me publishing this, or you want to not publish it?
Yeah, it's fine. Do whatever you want. This one was more just for fun.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay.